Hello everybody, welcome back to another installment of Life Stories. My name is Trent, and as usual, I hope you guys are all doing awesome. Today, we got some stories coming at you from, you may have guessed it, Reddit/idontworkherelady. So, without further ado, let's get it started. Our first story of the day is titled, I Do Work Here, But Not For You. This took place some 20 years ago, so memory may be a bit hazy, and one or the other details may escape me. I was working as an intern for a manufacturing company that would make car accessories. This was in their global headquarters. Once a year, they would have a large conference with some 200 attendees from the international offices in different countries. This was a 4-day thing that would have almost the entire conference area of the hotel we were hosting occupied. The large room was set up as an auditorium, and this is where all the presentations related to the best sellers, changes in assortment, novelties, marketing guidelines, etc. would be presented. Then, we had 3 more rooms. A relatively small one we used as storage and back office, and 2 other rooms that had items on display. One room was such that the windows to the outside were floor to ceiling, and could open so that a car could fit through them, and could be driven in through the fire department access lane that ran outside the building. So, in this one room, there were 3 cars that had various accessories mounted in and on them for display purposes. I was on duty to man one of the rooms while open to the attendees, and spent the remaining time stocking merchandise baskets in the main conference room, and giving the hotel catering a heads up when a segment was 10 minutes away from finishing, so they could roll out the food and drinks to be ready as people poured out of the main conference room. While the conference was in recess, the attendants were meant to enter these display rooms and look at the items on show, as they may have been presented during one of the segments of the conference itself. Many of these pieces were novelties being shown before being released to the market, so they were not meant to be seen by people outside the company. On the 2 days where this conference took place, other companies had meetings going on in other rooms, so the conference area couldn't be closed off from the main hotel lobby, and anyone who wanted to inspect could walk into the conference area. Normally, this was not a problem, because nobody who was not working there would look at a deserted corridor, and when people were out, it was obvious this was a closed group. But one day, during one of the breaks, a family of a father and 2 sons wandered in, and they went into the room with the 3 cars and accessories on display mounted on them. It was pretty close to the end of one break, so there was a lot of movement, but they could easily be made out, as children and a man with a faded t-shirt and shorts stuck out in a sea of suits. I saw them as one of the kids was making a straight line for one of the cars that had color-changing interior mood lighting and underfloor lighting installed. The color-changing bit was for display purposes, but I digress. As the room was soon going to be closed off anyway, I was prepared with the key fobs to lock the cars up before turning off the lights and locking the room. Before he could climb in and mess with the light system, which was partially installed so mounting could be visible to the attendees, I shut the car door and locked it, making the kid stop in his tracks and make a face. Before he could run off to the other cars, I dashed over to those and repeated the locking up operation over there as well. And none too soon, I may add, because Daddy was already there trying a door and barking at me to open the car for his kids to see. The following dialogue, which is not verbatim, ensued. "Sir, this is not a public display. You and your children will have to leave." "Open these cars, would you? What's the harm in my kids having a look at the pretty lights?" Again, this is not a public display. This is a private convention for invited attendees only. Please leave. He was getting really close to me, which was funny because I must have been a good 50 centimeters taller than him. His kids also now went to his side, as they must have sensed something was not right. I decided that the best thing to do was to slowly walk into him and get him out the door while he argued with me that I should let his kids into the cars and play with the lights. The conference attendees had already left for the next segment of the presentation in the other room. He continued with me being so rude, being nasty to his kids for no reason, and I kept repeating that this was all lovely, but I was working for the company that was hosting the conference, and that the items on display were not meant for the general public. The moment I had them over the threshold, I pulled the conference room door shut behind me, and as soon as I latched it closed, I slipped off to the side and made my way to the waiters that were disassembling the buffet, and asked them if they could help me return these people to the lobby, as they were not attendees. This is when Daddy went all indignant and told me I had terrible customer service, and that he'll be making a complaint. And I turned around and replied, "Sir, I don't work for you or this hotel. I don't care if you think I'm rude to you and you want to make a complaint about me at the desk. All I want is for you to get lost from my space my company rented and you have no business being in." He then got really upset and started cursing at me, but the waiters took over and escorted him away from the conference room area. And I returned to the back office to put the key fobs away and then returned to the conference room with the cars to check that everything was in order and switch off the lights. As I was leaving the conference room, the manager for the conferencing spaces came to apologize, and I told her that it wasn't her fault and that I hoped the guy didn't cause much of a scene. She didn't reply to that, but told me they would be posting someone at the entry from the lobby to the conference area for the remaining breaks that were planned for that day. And that's the end of that story, and I gotta say, I'm still confused as to how Dad and his kids managed to get inside this giant conference. They weren't even dressed the part. Why were they there? Ugh. Anyway, moving along from that, our next story is titled, "I know you don't work here, but I can't leave a store without starting an argument, being proven wrong, then acting like I was right all along." Earlier today, I was shopping in the hardware section of the big chain that starts with LO and ends in UZ. The older generation who works that department came up to me, faced me, made eye contact with me, and asked if he could help me. Just as I was beginning to speak, Karen walked up behind him and said to the back of his head, "Yes, you can," as if I wasn't there. I really didn't need any help, so I let it go and told the employee it was okay and to go ahead and help her. As I was looking for the screws I needed, she asked him how far apart she should space shelf brackets along 12-foot shelving, using one solid 12-foot board. He told her every other stud should do it and that the studs were 16 inches apart. She turned and started to walk away, and the employee got tagged by another customer, so he walked away. She stopped, turned back, and spoke to me as if I had just been the one speaking with her. She could not possibly have mistaken myself for the employee. I'm white, 5'8", with a beard, no red vest, and the employee was black, over 6 feet, with no beard and a red vest. "So, every 3 feet then?" Karen asked. "What? Well, no. As he said, studs are every 16 inches, so a bracket every 32 inches. "Right, 16 inches, 1.5 feet. Twice that is 3 feet. I can add." "No, 16 inches is not 1.5 feet. There are 12 inches in a foot. 6 inches is half a foot. That equals..." Karen, now interrupting me, "Of course I know that. Good lord. It's a good thing you don't work here. You'd be telling people all kinds of dumb crap." Me, now realizing what's going on and thinking to myself, "Oh, it's on, Karen." I take my tape measure off my belt and pull the tape out. I see that red arrow at 16 feet and 32 feet. "See where it says stud below the arrows?" I ask. "Those arrows go on every 16 inches for the whole 20 inches of the tape measure. See 18 inches? And how that's exactly halfway between 1 and 2? That's 1.5 feet. Which is 12 plus 6, which is not 16. Ergo, I really said ergo, never thought I'd use it in my life, but I was on a roll. 16 inches is not 1.5 feet. "I know that," Karen said. Me, now confused and temporarily disoriented. "But..." Karen, now friendly all of a sudden, trying to pretend the previous conversation never happened. "Anyway, what kind of screws would you use?" "Overconfidence, Karen. Your arrogance is your undoing. Your tears of dropping eye of newt into a cauldron do not vex me, for I used to be a service writer at an auto shop. I sold people rotors and calipers when they really only needed pads. I sold alignments on cars with less than 100 miles on the odometer. I sold road hazard warranties that I knew my company would never honor. Though I repented years ago and no longer dabble in the black arts of auto repair bullcrappery, I am still a level 3 bullcrap master when I must be." Me, now laser focused and smelling an opportunity for sweet vengeance. "Oh, no, don't mess your walls up with screws. They'll weaken your studs. make your paint peel, and they're not up to code for hanging shelves anymore. Didn't you hear about that? No? I'm surprised. It was all over the news a while back. Okay, do you own a hammer? Yeah? Good. I walk over and pick up a handful of aluminum gutter spikes. Use these, much easier to drive into studs than those clunky screws. And really, you could get away with a bracket on every other stud, but I'd go every stud. If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing, am I right? Oh, thanks! Now I don't have to buy a drill. Yep, good luck, I said. That's the end of our story, and I can only imagine what the state of Karen's home looked like after you left her to her devices. Might be one of the meanest pranks I've ever seen someone pull on a Karen, barring getting them arrested, if you even consider that a prank. But hey, it's new. I'll take it. +1 for originality. Anyway, with that story out of the way, we are out of time for today's episode, ladies and gentlemen. So, I want to thank all of you so much for tuning into Life Stories. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more Reddit content coming your way. My name is Trent, and I hope to see you guys soon.